So, if you like action, if you're into martial arts fighting and amazing, incredible, out of this world gunplay, this movie is definitely for you. John Wick 3 takes off exactly where part 2 had left off, and that is there's a $14 million bounty on John Wick's head. Of course, in part 2, John Wick did the unthinkable, the unacceptable, and committed murder. He assassinated somebody inside the Continental Hotel. The most sacred, well-known rule for assassins is business cannot be conducted inside the Continental Hotel, and definitely nobody can be killed. John Wick broke this rule, and Winston, the manager and owner of the Continental Hotel, had no choice but to raise this $14 million bounty on John Wick's head. And it's non-stop action from there. The movie starts off with John Wick having 30 minutes before the actual bounty is active, and unfortunately for John Wick, someone tries to claim the bounty early because, frankly, if he gets killed and just waits until the bounty is active, no one's going to know exactly when he was killed. So John Wick is straight into it before the bounty is even active, and from there on in, once the bounty is active at 6 o'clock and the movie takes off from 5:30, all of the ruthless, the most ruthless assassins around New York are notified, and they're after John Wick to claim that bounty. There's just enough humor in this movie with the over-the-top action that you'll be laughing out loud in your seats or at home on the couch. There's an awesome throwing knife sequence here that you'll definitely laugh out loud. It's just so over the top and so funny that it just mixes together well. A little bit of humor goes with the absolutely brutal violence. Another sequence at a horse stable where horses are used to kick, villains in the face and things like that. It's definitely very over the top, but works quite well, and it's unique. It's something different, and I enjoyed watching all of the fight choreography in this movie. Halle Berry makes an appearance in this, and she has two of the most vicious dogs that you'll ever meet in your life. They're two German Shepherds, and they are amazing. You will fall in love with them, I guarantee you. Mark Dacascos, who's a martial arts action star from the 90s. He appeared in B-grade type films back when Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Dolph Lundgren were all peaking, and he was kind of a tier below them. He's not as well known, but he definitely had the skills as a martial artist, and I definitely remember seeing him in various movies in the 90s, but never quite made it to the Van Damme tier. Those of you that grew up around the 80s and 90s will remember all of those B-grade type of movies. They were definitely out there, and I was absolutely obsessed with them. So whether it's the big action stars like Van Damme or the smaller ones like Mark Dacascos and Jeff Wincott, Chad McQueen, Lorenzo Lamas, you'll probably remember all those names. Oh God, I can feel my age right now. But I was so obsessed with martial arts at one stage in my younger days that I watched all of those movies. Doesn't matter how B-grade, Z-grade the acting or the movie actually was. So it's good to see Mark Dacascos back in action, and he definitely provided some comedic relief in this movie. He had some funny moments, definitely, and it's good to see him in really good condition as well, because his fight scenes are very, very impressive, and I'm happy that he was in this movie. Jerome Flynn, who plays Bronn in Game of Thrones, also appears in this. For those of you that watch Game of Thrones, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Bronn and Oberyn Martell were my two favorite characters in Game of Thrones, all-time favorite characters. Fortunately, Bronn is still living, but unfortunately, Oberyn Martell met his fate in the very same season that we were introduced to the character for the first time, in season 3, where he had his face crushed like a watermelon by the mountain. But we're not going to get into Game of Thrones right now. Let's stick to John Wick. Unfortunately, after we meet the Jerome Flynn character, which was a great scene in this movie, one of the standouts for sure, with Halle Berry and her dogs, and just the action and the gunplay was out of this world. That led to this desert sequence with John Wick, which I actually wasn't a fan of. I think they could have skipped over that unnecessary desert sequence where John Wick is, walking up these sand dunes alone on the near death, and he has to meet somebody to find himself or something silly like that. I think they could have definitely left all that out and quickly rewrote it and just went from the Jerome Flynn scene into like the next scene and left out the desert. That's just what I think. I don't think it fits into the movie very well, or the pacing, but some of you might disagree. If you do, that's fine. That's what films are all about. We all have different opinions. Let me know in the comments below. That's not a problem. Like, I still love you and I hope you love me. I hope we're not going to have some sort of weirdness between us now because we disagree on something. With the desert scene aside though, this is probably my least favourite out of the 3 films. Not because it's not a great film. It's a fantastic film. I loved it from start to finish. It's just that I thought the story elements and the pacing in part 1 and 2 were better. You know, there was reasons for John Wick to do what he was doing. In part 1, he lost his wife and then thugs came, killed his dog, stole his car, and he just went crazy. You know, it was great, you know, all over a dog. That line is still used in all of these other films, and I just thought that worked really well. We're sort of treated to seeing John Wick in a peaceful kind of existence, living life, trying to live a normal life, as opposed to the assassin life. He's, you know, out of that game, but he's lured back in. Just when he thought he was out, they pull him back in. And in part 2, after he's already got his revenge, he's living a peaceful existence again, and somebody comes with a marker, so John Wick owes them a favor because of this marker, and he declines, still trying to live his peaceful existence in his house, and then gets his whole house blown up. So again, he's sucked back into this assassin world, and obviously is out for revenge as well, because now he's lost his wife, his original dog, and now his car at one stage, and now of course his precious house, which was a beautiful house at one stage. Whereas part 3 is just non-stop action. I guess it's necessary to follow through with the story because it is taking off exactly where part 2 left off. So I definitely appreciate it. I'm not saying it's a bad film or anything like that. Apart from the desert sequence, there's nothing in the movie that I actually didn't enjoy. I loved all of the cameos from the actors. It's just that I didn't think part 3 was fit. I didn't feel like the desert sequence was actually quite necessary or fitting to the film. And also, I just appreciate the story elements and some of the reasons behind John Wick looking at or going back to his violent sort of life as opposed to part 3. That's all. It's just a personal thing, and it's still a fantastic movie, and that is why on my Bannock 13 scale out of 13, I rate John Wick a very well deserved 12 out of 13. Highly enjoyable from start to finish. The action here is probably more than there was in any of the other films. This is probably the most action you're going to see out of the 3 films. So definitely a must-watch movie, whether you want to go to the theater or just wait for the Blu-ray at home or wait until it's out on Netflix. It's totally up to you, but it's definitely worth the watch, especially if you enjoyed the other John Wick films and if you like Keanu Reeves as an actor, who I actually adore as a person and as an actor because he's just so humble and so genuine in real life, and he's definitely not one of those typical Hollywood snobby up yourself types. He's just like a genuine down-to-earth kind of guy, and he's also appearing in Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, and we're getting a new Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a 3rd film. So it's great to see Keanu really peaking in Hollywood right now. There's probably nobody else other than Keanu that I'd like to see succeed this much. Don't forget to leave me a like and a comment down below. If I see some reactions to this review, I'll definitely go back and rewatch part 1 and 2, and I'll do those reviews and post them online. Until next time, I love you all.